Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. All right, once you've installed V-Ray, of course you need to have Rhino shut down when you install the actual plugin. When you open Rhino the next time, it should look something like this. You'll go up to the top where it says Render, and then you'll go down to where it says Current Renderer, and you change it to V-Ray for Rhino. Boom. And then you come over here to where we've got this little panel here. If you don't have all these panels, not a big deal. I don't even need most of these. Matter of fact, I'm just going to keep the compact one here, because most of the settings are actually housed in here too. So if you click on this, you'll see the V-Ray Asset Editor pop up, and you'll probably see a sign that says you need to download your materials. So we'll go ahead and download these materials, and once they're done, I'll come back. Okay, so we're back, finally. Okay, and a key thing that I didn't mention is maybe it came up like this, and you have to expand the sides here. Expand the sides here. So now that gives you, this is the properties, this is the different settings, this is the material library, and then over here, if you expand this, you'll see we've got bricks, car paint, a million other things. It's about 480 different materials you can use here, so quite substantial. And then of course all of them can be tweaked. So applying materials, I'll switch this to rendered. You'll want to try to keep everything organized using using some sort of a layering system. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show you applying materials and manipulating them. So let's go ahead and explode. And then I've got all of these different shapes, which are going to be kind of a pain in the butt because they're all separate now. But what you want to do is, let's say, maybe I'm going to use fabric. I might even use fabric for everything, because fabric is a complicated thing to use, and it's something that we'll be able to manipulate over time. So I'm going to actually change this properties, units, and I'm going to put it into centimeters. Just to, oh no, I'm not going to put it, sorry, it's already in millimeters. Mine's in millimeters, yours might be as well. But I can now just either click on this object and then right click on this and apply to selection. Okay, and that adds the material. And then you'll see under your document materials, right here, this is that material that's applied. I'm noticing it's pixelated. It doesn't look like it's quite the way I want it to be. And that might just be because the panel is so small. So I imagine if I shift and select multiple panels, and apply to selection. Okay. Now I can come over here and modify this material. So these are the properties for this specific material. And just like the Rhino renderer, you're going to be having different tiles. How many times you want this to repeat itself. You see the bump map is turned on here, which is going to give you the texture, right? And if you click on this, you get the detail for the texture. And then you can go to texture placement, or color manipulation. Yeah, let's go back and click on this. No. Where is it? Reflection, that's how much it reflects the light around it. Refraction, coat, opacity, binding. Sorry about that. This is a newer version. Usually under texture placement, it has this next step involved. So let's go back here. So you're looking at the texture, you click on it, you go down to bump map here, and then you click on this, and then you click on UV placement source. And then you'll see repeat UVs. And this is where you can increase the resolution. See how that changed it. I've just made it 30 times. 30 might be too much, maybe 20. And you can unlock this too to change it more. All right, so you can see I've applied this material here, and then you can just go through and select, and this is again why the layers are so much better. Select these different planes and sections here, and under your materials library you can assign to apply to selection, like that. And again, remember, just because the color isn't there doesn't mean it's not going to be there when you render it. And then things like, you've got paper, which you can apply to like the book pages. And again, you might need to change the tiling on it, but if you've got paper here, and let me just delete this, and just, you don't want to use too many of them, so go ahead and make sure you're using just one material here. So this material, and then you can just, your library materials, you can apply it to selection. So that way you're only dealing with one. Okay, and then let's see what the settings are like here. Go to our bump map, go to here. Oh, it doesn't look like it's got a bump map, does it? No, it doesn't. It's just got a color map, this is the color map for it. So now we go to the texture placement. So bump maps will give you texture. The color maps will just give you a simple image on here. So now you got to go to that, and then we go to this here, and I'll make it 30, and now you've got some lined paper. Okay. So materials are going to be pretty easy to play with otherwise, right? So as long as you know how to change the repeat on the materials to make it all look right, you've got your layers set up. Just play with the different materials, plastics, and you can even play with modifying them, right? So if I change this to this, go to the plastic, let's see, the bump is on, you can tell because it's blue, by the way. So if I click on that, texture placement, and click over here, then we'll go to repeat, 20, 20. Now you've got kind of that texture going there, go back. And then we go up to the top, back one more time, and I'll change this color to something a little bit more like that. And let's make sure that it did change. Yeah. So now you can see, you can change the color of a material that has a texture. Really nice, comfortable, easy to do. Okay, now let's get to rendering, because you kind of understand the layout here. We've got all of our materials. You put the material on there, and then in this panel here, you've got your settings for the materials that are in the scene. You don't want to have a lot of duplicated materials. Make sure you're applying. You can apply to the layers. That's the easiest way to go. Then the next thing we've got is lighting too, right? So I assume this is going to be in a room, and you've got your kind of room drawn out here, but let's go ahead and just make this a room for now. Okay, shell. Okay. And then we'll put your character in. Make sure the gumball is turned on. Where is it? Down here. Okay. Put the character in the room. You'll notice that the lighting is going to be more difficult when it's in a room because, of course, depending on how many windows are in your room, you may not you may not have much in the way of light. So let's go ahead and set character down. Move this way. So I want to talk about the lights a little bit. Okay. So once you've got your character in the room, you're going to need to add lights. And that's what this is right here. So if I go here, you can see that right now the only light that's in here is the sunlight. If I click out over here, now you'll see that we've got different types of lights. A rectangular light is really quite interesting and easy. I could just put a square, or a rectangle I should say, right, in the room. And now I've got it lit up. Pretty easy, right? If I go to this rectangle light, I can change the parameters of it. I can have it be invisible, so it doesn't look like a giant glowing light on the top. I can have it be double-sided too. So say I wanted to click on it. Select the light. Okay, I can bring it down. And you saw it kind of lights this up here. So now I've got basically a plane that's lighting up the whole thing. That's probably the easiest, simplest way to have the scene be lit up. I'm going to go ahead and explode this. I'm going to add a material to the floor. Let's just add maybe let's do hardwood. So let's go wooden laminates. Certain ones don't have any floorboards. Other ones do. I like to use... For this one, I'm going to use parquet, I think. Here, and just drop it in. And again, you see that it's a little bit off as far as the size goes. So we go over to materials. We find our parquet floor. And this, again, will be under the bump map. Bump, here. Texture placement here, 20, no, 10. And so you just play with that until you get it the way you want. All right, and then let's do some wallpaper or something like that. Let's see. Maybe bricks. Let's just do bricks. Bricks on the wall. Okay, this is a good one because I'm using a lot of textures that are tiled because those are pretty difficult because you always have to tweak those. Bricks. Okay, so let me go ahead actually and assign this all to 1 here. Apply to selection, and I'll just delete this and delete this. And then come back here and go to bump map, click on this one, and you can see there's our bump. And we'll go to texture, placement. First thing we're going to do is we're going to rotate it 90. Okay. And then we're going to do 10. All right. So that's just setting up our repeat. Okay, so let's look at our room now. And give it a shot at rendering. At this point, what I'm going to start doing is going to my settings here. And I've got a really nice graphics processor, so I can use RTX. But if you've got a GPU versus CPU rendering option here, you might want to switch it to GPU. I'm going to switch mine to RTX, and then I'm going to turn on interactive rendering. Okay, the quality is by default hopefully pretty low. So you want it to be maybe even, I'll do 600, and I'll keep my aspect ratio 16:9 there. Okay, because I'm just going to be doing a preview rendering. So the nice thing about this is I can be rendering in real time the entire time I am looking at my my object here. So if I give it a second. Okay, so let's try it. Click on this to start the interactive rendering. And what's nice is I can see exactly how this is going to look on the final version. And I can already tell it's blown way out. So that means my light is all messed up. I can take my light source here, this rectangular light that's at 100. If I click here and go to 50, a little better, 40, a little better, 30, a little bit better, 20, 10. Okay. 10%. That'll work for this. And it's all based on size too. So if the object is a little bit smaller, you're going to have less light required, right? Like same way if you have a giant room and you have a flashlight, it's going to be less powerful than if you have a small room and a flashlight. So the light is accurate. Okay, so got my interactive renderer here. I'm going to make it kind of small and just leave it over here in the corner. And so now when I go back to my settings here, as I tweak the settings, I can kind of see a little preview of how it's going to look when it's done. So say I don't like this light. If I delete it and I want to use a spotlight, or you can see once I deleted the light, it doesn't look great. I can use all different types of lights. So if I click over here and hold this down, you can see I've got a sphere light, spotlight, IES light, point light, all different types of stuff. So a spotlight, of course, will be directional. So if I take that, it's going to ask me to choose where it's going to hit, and then choose the radius of the light, and then it's going to have me choose where the light's coming from. So I'm going to snap it to this corner here. Okay. So I got the spotlight, and then I can select it in the scene. Okay. And I can't really see it, but if I switch this to wireframe, now I can see it, right? So when I'm looking at it, I can see that there's a hot spot in the middle here that I can click on and move out to make the hot spot a little bit bigger. I can see where it's hitting, and I can also move the whole light. So those are the three elements that you have to work with. Is basically you want to work with the point that it's coming from, the point that it's going to, and remember, if I've got ortho on, I can hit shift and kind of control it a little bit more freely. And it's just, if you click on any of these dots, that's how you can change it, and then using the gizmo tool. Okay. And if it's not bright enough, as I can see in my render preview here, I can increase that. And there are all kinds of settings for the lights that you would have to play with, like the intensity level of it, right? Like I can make it really intense. Change the cone size. And you'll see the parameters of the light kind of being previewed right there. Okay. So that's a spotlight. And then let's do one more kind of light, which is a point light. So point lights are just basically lights that we set anywhere in space. If I can set it right there, and I can move it down. Think of them almost as like incandescent light bulbs hanging from a wire. All right. Z enter, S enter to zoom on my selected object, and let's go ahead and go inside here. So you see rectangle lights are the easiest, and you know they work pretty well. Okay. Awesome. So I've got it kind of like she's in a prison here. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to, you know, these are all the parameters you can keep playing with and just have fun with them once you figure out kind of how to do the basics. But then I'm going to go to settings here, and I'm going to turn off my, I'm going to stop my interactive here. Okay. And I'm going to set it up for my final, actually, you know what, no, I'm going to start my interactive back up. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to set my camera exposure. I'm going to increase the exposure on the camera a little bit because I'm looking at this, I'm going, oh, it's kind of dark. But if I switch it to 8 here, then I can see some good shadows. I'm thinking that might look a little bit better. Okay, now let's do our final thing. So depth of field, you can also put, you know, areas of focus with a fall off, and I mean, there's a million settings you can get all crazy with, and it will just make things look better and better and better as you keep playing with this. So depth of field, I can set a focus source, and I can have the background kind of blur out like it's done with the camera. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go to render output. I'm going to change the size to 1080. And I can change my aspect ratio a little bit here, maybe 4:3. Actually, no, I'm gonna keep it at wide. Widescreen might look better with what you're gonna end up doing. So, 2500, I can make it really nice and high quality, and then. Now that I can see my exposure's looking pretty good, I can go over here and turn off my interaction. First I have to click on this to stop the render. Turn off the interaction. And here's where we go full blown. High plus. And then I'm just going to set that at high plus, this image size. And then you can set this to automatically save to your file path. You can set the file path here, and I can set it to my desktop so I don't have to watch it. Once it's done rendering, it'll automatically save, and I won't have to worry about it going away. And that should be good enough for now. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to click on Render with V-Ray, and we'll see what the final version looks like. So close this. Click here one more time, and you'll see that it doesn't have the little hand anymore because now it's set to full render. This is going to take a bit of time, and as it renders, it'll become more and more detailed until the very final pass where you get the most amount of textures and stuff. So I'm going to pause for now. I'll see you in a minute. All right, so this is kind of an example of how it'll look, and you can see the complicated textures, hopefully, and get a real feeling for the overall quality of the light and the way it's rendered here. So that's kind of an introduction to V-Ray. Hopefully it makes sense and you don't run into too many problems, but if you do, go ahead and shoot me an email.